if you are importing products to sell online or in retail stores, then you probably understand the importance and the challenges of maintaining tight timelines for production and shipping. So that's why we're talking about production monitoring. I'm joined today by Andy Church, the founder of Insight Quality. And, he's an industry veteran with more than 20 years of experience in quality control and assurance. So I'm sure he has some good insights for us today about production monitoring. So let's get into it. So let's start off by asking the kind of fundamental question here, and that is, what is production monitoring?
So production monitoring is, to use the words, it monitors production. And that involves typically sending an inspector or an engineer slash inspector to the factory to be on site during the entire production run, checking not only incoming raw materials, but at the very first of production, what's often referred to as top of line or top of production, and not just inspecting what is being produced at the different steps, but analyzing any defects or deviations from the standard and working with the factory to correct those issues. And this is most beneficial on large or long-term production runs. This isn't going to be something that is production monitoring isn't going to be something that is done when production is only can be completed over a day or a couple days. These are usually long, weeks long or months long engagements to ensure that the quality standards that the buyer expects the factory to deliver are consistent throughout the production.
So, what would you say are the benefits of production monitoring?
Some of the benefits of production monitoring are quick resolutions. The engineer that's on site typically should have understanding and knowledge about the process of the goods that are being produced and work with the factory to make improvements. So that those two things are the most beneficial components of having a production monitoring program. Visibility. The on-site engineer has intimate knowledge of the production process and the timing, and there's accountability to ensure that the factory is going to be able to meet their ship deadlines, they're going to be able to ship on time, and that there aren't any quality issues. So production monitoring isn't just inspecting, it's ensuring that the factory addresses issues, makes process improvements, and allows for visibility and accountability throughout the manufacturing cycle from the time an order is placed to the goods shipped.
One thing that can kind of get a little confusing sometimes is understanding the difference between, inspection and production monitoring. So what really is the difference between production monitoring and inspection?
Production monitoring has a broader focus. Inspections are typically product based and not process driven. And they're also a longer time frame. Production monitoring isn't going to be beneficial or used when production only takes place over a day or a couple of days. So these are going to be longer term projects, typically much higher quantities than a small order. And they're not just about quality, they're about process, understanding what is the issue and getting to the root cause of the issue and working with the factory to address. So, simply put, production monitoring is process based, while pre shipment inspections are a very narrow quality focused tool.
There really is a very clear difference between, production monitoring and just regular inspections. Um, And we've worked on a lot of these production monitoring projects with our clients. And maybe you could share with us a little bit about how we approach production monitoring with our clients.
We typically approach production monitoring projects with our clients as a result of an issue that our client is having with the factory, whether that be strictly a quality issue, on-time shipping issue, or a combination of both. So we typically begin a production monitoring project by ensuring that we have a subject matter expert engineer that can work with the factory to review and understand their specific processes. While we may, using example as a apparel, everybody wears clothes, and we may have a subject matter expert in apparel production, textiles, but each factory is going to have nuances in how they do things their way. So ensuring that the engineer on site is familiar with the factory's production methods and workflow, and then begins to work with them to monitoring production based on the client's expectations and collecting data and reviewing that data with the factory on an ongoing basis. Typically, throughout the day, it's not just a once a week meeting or at the end of the day. The objective of production monitoring is similar to inline inspections. It's that when something is found, it's communicated to the factory. The difference between inline inspections, it's catching the component or the finished good from going on to the next stage. With production monitoring, it's taking that finding, knowing that something isn't being produced or there's an issue with it, an observation, and working with the factory to identify the cause, address the root cause, and implement measures to solve it. So it's about immediate communication cycle, discussing those issues with the client, making sure that they're kept up to date on the communication cycle they desire. Some of our clients, that's daily. It's not immediate, like with the factory, due to time zone differences. If we're producing an on-site at a facility in Asia and our clients in Australia, Europe, or the States, immediate communication is going to be not very convenient for one of the parties. So, and continue communicating and identifying areas for improvement. This feedback, the continuous feedback loop, is what summarizes production monitoring. It's to ensure that the factory is identifying issues as they occur, communicating with the factory, and most importantly, shipping quality product on time.
Finally, I'd like to just ask this question, and that is, who should consider production monitoring services? And maybe who shouldn't consider these services? So what are your thoughts about that?
Production monitoring should be considered by companies who have large production runs. They want to minimize quality and shipping delays, and they have factories that are partners, meaning they have factories who are open and willing to have a third party on site that will work with them to address or identify potential issues and solve those issues to ensure that their production order, their production for their client's order meets their client's quality requirements and ships on time.
Thank you for joining me today, Andy, to share these great insights about production monitoring. And if you, our viewer, are interested in learning more about production monitoring, feel free to reach out to us with any questions you have, and we'll be happy to talk to you about your product. So, thanks for joining us. Take care.